There is bad blood in the welterweight division. Kamaru Usman and Belal Muhammad, throughout this fight week, they've been doing interviews, bringing each other up. Well, to be fair, it's the interviewers bringing them up, bringing each other up, the podcast and all the animosity. But they've been giving us some spicy comments, some really interesting sound bites about each other. And more information has been revealed about the infamous podcast that isn't released. It's being tucked away, stored away in the hard drive of Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo. They're hiding it deep away in that hard drive. We just want to see it. All the fans want to see it. This is a fight that is obviously these two fighters have other fights scheduled. We don't even know if this fight could ever happen because who knows how Kamaru Usman's next fight with Joaquin is going to be. Who knows if Belal is going to lose the bout. So obviously there's some things that need to fall in line in order for this matchup to happen. But I'm really hoping it does. I really hope that these two guys win their next fights because then this fight could happen. And, for those of you who don't know, Belal Muhammad and Kamaru Usman allegedly, well, I shouldn't say allegedly, it's been confirmed at this point. They got into a fight on a podcast. And by all accounts, it sounds like Kamaru Usman lost his cool first and that he attacked Belal and was in a crying rage when he did so. So we're going to go over some of the interviews, some of these sound bites. This is from the other day. This was Kamaru Usman on the Brett Okamoto show on ESPN MMA being interviewed. We're going to go over this clip. Let's take a look.
What are your thoughts on Belal? And I got to be honest, I didn't really know that there was this, I don't know how you're going to feel about me bringing this up to you here on camera, but is there some rumor or some questioning over did you go after him on a podcast set or something? Am I behind the news cycle on this? What is the
All right, I hate to be a body language expert all of a sudden. I don't like doing these body language expert things, but Kamaru Usman's facial expressions told me that he did not really want this brought up it's just annoying to him, I should say. It's more like annoying, I have to talk about this guy again, Belal, and the fight and the podcast. It's like he's almost getting annoyed whenever this infamous podcast is brought up.
There's a background, the past with you and Belal.
No, there's allegedly a lot of speculation, a lot of things being said. No, it's Belal is a guy that I never really, he was always around, and I never really paid attention to because I was doing what I needed to do to get them. I was always fighting the next guy up. I didn't really pay attention to Belal. And
all right, so we can kind of see it's a very creative way of saying that Belal Muhammad during my title reign was irrelevant. That's kind of what he's saying. Now, he's not saying that exactly, but he's saying, I was always, taking on the next guy, the next, next top guy. It's like, he's kind of saying yeah, Belal wasn't one of them. I was always taking on the next top guy. Belal wasn't one of them. Now, I do think Belal should have been. There were a couple title defenses of Kamaru's that were very undeserved. Masvidal getting the second title shot was ridiculous. Colby Covington getting a second title shot after beating a washed-up, practically retired Tyrone Woodley. Some title defenses that I didn't really agree with personally. But let's continue the clip and we'll talk more about how Belal, uses some of his resume to discredit Kamaru Usman. And we'll talk about, because it seems like a lot of the animosity comes from each other discrediting each other and their accolades. So let's play the clip. So.
But now I'm forced to actually look at Belal. He's not bad. He's just good everywhere. And that's been working. That's worked for him. So he's not bad. I'm never in any way discrediting that. I think once I was forced to pay attention to him, I started to kind of see the antics that goes on outside of the cage. And I was never that guy. If I was champion and the next guy up was barking at me, and then of course I would respond, all right, and then we get in there and we'd settle it. But Belal just seems to be a different type of champion who he's willing to make memes and he's willing to get on Twitter and social media because he wants the attention. He craves that attention.
So what I find really interesting about this part is that, Usman has dealt with big trash talkers during his title reign especially. the Kobe fights. There was a lot of back and forth between him and Masvidal. But what's very different about this, relationship between those other contenders and Kamaru Usman now, because Kamaru Usman's a challenger now. So now he's in that position where there's a champion who's always talking, not always, but a lot of the times is not afraid to take a dig at him. And with Kobe, he dealt with the trap, but he beat them. That's the difference, is he fought them and beat them, and he was the champ at that time. So the what am I trying to say? The power dynamic was very different, is what I'm trying to say. When you're the champion and those challengers are chirping at you. But now Usman, 38 years old, couple losses, I think 3-fight losing streak now. Belal's the champ, and you're constantly having your accolades discredited by Belal. You're also having this guy chirp at you on Twitter, as he was saying. It must be very frustrating for Usman, because he hasn't really been in this kind of power dynamic where he's the challenger and the champion is talking about him and stuff. So let's continue the clip.
Even if you're a lightweight, even if you're a guy that's a flyweight that's not even in his division, he's willing to have that back and forth with you. And for me, I just find it a little bit distasteful, and I wasn't a part of it. And then once, like I said, he became champion, he started to come at me with that energy. It was like, oh, you have a problem with me? Well, if you have a problem, I don't really do play the internet game. Let's talk it out. And so, we invited him on a podcast, and, it went how it went. That's all I can say. Eventually, hopefully, we'll release that podcast, because it wasn't really – he was only there for like maybe 10 minutes. It wasn't really long. And then it was over, and he left.
Okay, so, hate to be another body language expert again, but, by the way he said that, by the way he said, it only lasted 10 minutes, then he left, and all that, and kind of shrugging it off. It seems like he might have embarrassed himself, whether it was getting emotional, whether it was Belal, 10-8ing him in a round, who knows what went down on that podcast. We're going to let this clip play out. We're going to play some more clips. We're going to talk about Henry Cejudo, what he had to say, what went down, what Belal says, and all that.
Yeah, that was about it. But, I mean, he's fighting, this coming weekend? So, I'm sure he's focused on that. And, and I'm focused on my fight June 14th with Joaquin Buckley.
For sure. Does it rise to the level of, if you guys were like backstage at a UFC event that neither of you were competing on, the security would need to be aware of where you are? Does it rise to that level?
Probably.
Wow.
So that was a big takeaway a lot of people got from this, was that very ending part where these guys really don't like each other, to the point where UFC security needs to be aware of their location at these events to make sure they don't run into each other and get into another fight. We're going to now look at Belal Muhammad, a clip from the Belal Muhammad interview he did on the Full Send podcast. Let's take a look.
And you're not going to want to put it out there.
What happened?
We were on this podcast, and Henry Cejudo was like, how does it feel to be champion? And you're at the top now. And I was like, it feels good right now, because everybody wants to listen to you. Everybody thinks you're the champ. Usman's like, I was the champ too. It's like, yeah, but you're not the champ anymore. And then he just couldn't let it go. He's like, but I'm right there. I was like, nah, bro, you're on a 3-fight losing streak. And he's like, I still had the belt. And I was like, I'm the champion now. But he just couldn't give me my props, right? It was just one of those where he was just like, but anything you do, I do better than you. And then I was like, but you didn't take the head kick better than me. And I think that just triggered him.
Yeah, so that's a line, I didn't even know. I didn't know he said that. I don't think he had revealed that until this interview, but that is a crazy thing to say. That's a really great comeback from Belal, being said, I can do anything better than you, and then bringing up the head kick and saying, I took that head kick better than you. That's got a sting for Kamaru Usman. That did probably sting him and probably caught him off guard a little bit in the middle of that interview, which is what led to the emotions. But as I was saying before, that part where he's describing the dialogue between him and Kamaru, it kind of proves my point. This was an entirely different power dynamic, and Kamaru couldn't handle that. He's being chirped at by the new champion, being told, oh, this and this, and I'm the champ now, blah, blah. And Kamaru Usman just couldn't give him the credit. And we'll see that's a theme throughout this rivalry, is these guys not wanting to give each other the credit. Now, to be fair, in the last interview, Kamaru did give him some credit, but overall, you can tell that Kamaru thinks he's just the better fighter, and overall, yeah, just the better MMA fighter. But let's continue this.
Where he was just like, I don't play these games, man. It's on site when people talk like that. And I was like, we're right in front of each other on site. So then,
you guys did it in person?
Yeah, it was in person.
Oh, because they do it over Zoom sometimes too.
No,
right?
this was in person. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
We had the same manager, right?
Yeah.
Ali was like,
Ali's the GOAT.
Bro, yeah, he's the man. And
bro, when he said that, a part of me started thinking, did Ali set up that podcast because he knew this was going to happen? Did he? Because, he's Henry Cejudo's manager, I believe, too. So he's managing all three of these guys. I feel like Ali kind of orchestrated that on purpose, to have this situation where, they're beefing on the podcast, they get into it and all that. Now, something I did want to mention before about the power dynamic between Belal and Usman is that, I don't know if this happened before the podcast, the interview, the infamous podcast that has been tucked away in Kamaru Usman's hard drive. But remember when Usman and Belal were going back and forth on Twitter and they started bringing each other up, and something Belal kept bringing up was the Black Panther movie, and he kind of roasted him on Twitter before the actual interview, I believe, in which he said, you're in a movie about fighting and you were made a background character. And that probably, I feel like that stung Kamaru too, because I don't know if he ever responded to that tweet. Anyway, let's let this play out. Sorry.
When he told me to go do their podcast, I was like, are you sure? He's, no, brother, it's going to be professional. It's going to be this. Like, you're good. I was like, bro, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I'm the champ. I don't really care. I'll go on the podcast. And then, Henry Cejudo twisted his ankle. I had to break it up. But,
you guys actually got into a physical?
Yeah. But
have you guys said that publicly ever or no?
Yeah. I think it's been put out there. But like I said, they had the footage, right? Maybe he's waiting to
so you guys actually got into it. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so as everyone's been saying, release the Belal cut. We want to see that. What he revealed was actually new information, which I don't think anyone knew, which is Henry Cejudo twisting his foot, twisting his ankle, trying to break these guys up. Now, just visually imagining that is quite hilarious. The idea of like Belal and Kamaru getting into like a cartoonish scuffle where it's just a big ball of dust and you see fists flying and kicks being thrown, and then Henry trying to jump in there, and then he gets tossed out and he has like a broken ankle. It's very funny to think about this going down on the podcast. This is what they said on the Pound for Pound podcast. Let's take a look.
A lot of people have been saying, drop the Belal interview.
Yeah, for those that are wondering you don't know what's going on, or wondering what happened. Last time we were in Vegas, out of respect, we wanted to have Belal on the podcast. In typical
180 shown?
In typical Belal fashion, of course, Belal did Belal, so the interview didn't go as planned.
But now we know what he said. That's Belal did Belal, but this clip, I should have given you some context. This clip here is from some months ago when they were being grilled about it, because every single comment section on the Pound for Pound podcast, almost every episode has at least some comments about drop the Belal cut. That's just a reoccurring theme on their comment section. But from what we heard about, what Belal said about I can take that head kick better than you, we see now why Usman doesn't specifically bring up what was said or the specific trash talk on that podcast.
And that was the biggest moment of his life, because that's all that he seems to want to talk about. I haven't mentioned it at all.
The podcast sucks.
We hear you fans. We will definitely drop the interview. We get really, really low on content. Why not?
Woo!
To be honest, it's the biggest moment of his life. That's why he talks about it every second. But then if we do drop the interview, it'll be the second biggest moment of his life, because he gives him relevance. He gives him a look.
All right. So I think what this is a little bit of cope, a little bit of save face from Kamaru Usman's behalf, because he knows that podcast does not make him look good. And so I need to call Belal irrelevant. That's something that a lot of MMA fans agree with. He's irrelevant, irrelevant. All right. But we get what he's doing. It's a little bit of cope, a little bit of save face. Now, this is from much more recent. This is from, believe yesterday, Media Day. This was Belal Muhammad discussing this is the most recent update we have on the entire podcast, the entire situation. This is what, okay, a little bit of context, sorry. Some context is, this was brought up because an interviewer, a media member, had brought up how Colby Covington had allegedly stolen Belal's lunch, even though Belal and his team have been in Canada, and Belal and his team live in Chicago. So what Colby did was he just found a brown paper bag, wrote the name Belal on it, and then made a little video in which he's like saying, "Oh, I stole his lunch." But that's why this is what led to this, essentially, where Kamaru Usman calls Colby and Belal, they should start a podcast called The Biggest Losers. Let's take a look.
These guys are like YouTubers now. Kamaru's a podcaster. Colby's a YouTuber. They need to do a podcast together, The Biggest Losers.
And last one, speaking of that podcast, do you think there's a reason they haven't put it out yet? Or do you think they may be holding it in case he gets a title shot? Or is there a reason why? Did he come off worse is basically what I'm asking.
No, I mean, if you're a grown man and you start crying on a podcast, it's your podcast, and you start tearing up, why would you want to put it out there? Unless there's like a really good editor that's going to try to clear it up. But I don't think they got that much money.
Well,
I mean, very pretty well put. I mean, I think through all these clips and all the alleged stories, all the, eyewitnesses, I think it's pretty obvious to suggest that Belal Muhammad might have had his first title defense already. Making the former champ cry and then holding your own in a scuffle we need to see. This is why I'm saying release the Belal cut, because it would bring us so much closure, so I don't have to make foolish videos like this. I want to thank all you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think about this heated rivalry between these two, what you think about the trash talk, and let me know what you think about this matchup, because I think it would be a great matchup. Now, I do want to say I did get a lot of hate for a video I made about Sean O'Malley and Merab not doing enough for the buildup of UFC 316. And although I was getting ratioed in the comment, I got cooked in that comment section. I'm not going to lie. I got ratioed. But I still stand by what I said, because I like buildup like this. I like trash talk. I like animosity. I like competitiveness. All right? If you guys want to see two fighters jerking each other off in a jacuzzi, fine. All right? Watch the trash talk. You can't see it because I'm putting up quotations with my fingers. Go watch the trash talk between fucking Merab and Sean O'Malley. It will help you get a fucking sleep. It works better than melatonin, watching the build-up between Merab and Sean O'Malley. All right. Again, thank you guys all so much for watching. Please like and subscribe.